Chapter 3. An air of apprehension lay across the camp in the meadow. Cheese Thief was dead, pierced by an immense arrow and dressed in Cluny's best battle armor. He lay amid the wreckage of the leader's tent. Not one of the horde dared to go near the gruesome scene, lest they be found in a position of blame upon Cluny's return. Constance peered agitatedly over the parapet. Something was not quite right. She felt it in her nostrils. The Badger's worst suspicions were confirmed by the sight of Cluny crossing the road and heading back into the meadow. Constance watched him leap across the ditch. There could be no doubt about it. That rat was definitely Cluny the Scourge. She had killed the wrong rat. Cluny had left his picked band back in the woodlands. They knew what they had to do. It would take a bit of time, but it was a sound, workable plan. Striding across the meadow, some sixth sense told Cluny that all was not right. His one eye scoured the area. There was the horde, gathered together at the far end. But what had happened to his tent? Cluny could vaguely discern a huddled figure tangled in the wreckage. Speculation was useless. He speeded up his pace. Fangburn met him halfway. Cluny held up a claw, silencing him. He would get to the bottom of things without stuttering excuses. He kicked the tent folds aside, revealing Cheese Thief's stricken face. The great arrow shaft protruded from the ruined armor. His war gear. Cluny glanced backwards and forwards from the abbey to the body. He took in at a quick rate all that had happened. The big badger was peering over the wall. It was her doing. Cluny's brain raced ahead. On the far edge of the meadow, the horde were looking decidedly uneasy. A mistake had been made. The arrow was meant for him. The warlord's fertile mind suddenly came up with an idea of how to turn the situation to his own advantage. Fangburn was, to say the least, surprised. Cluny clapped him heartily on the back and led him across to where the rest of the horde waited apprehensively. Cluny laughed aloud to put them at their ease. He winked his eye roguishly. "Well, I see my little scheme worked out just fine. We got the dirty traitor, didn't we, Fangburn, my old mate?" Fangburn was completely baffled, but he knew better than to disagree. Of course we did, Chief." Cluny nodded over at where the body lay. "Do you see that? Well, let it be a warning to you all. I knew what was going on with Cheese Thief. Didn't anyone else see him at the battering ram last night, acting all high and mighty?" There was a general murmur of agreement. Most of the rats had been pressed into volunteering as ram carriers by the ambitious Cheese Thief.
"Aye, we saw him, Chief, chucking his weight about, shouting orders.
He kept me on that ram for 2 hours.
Yes, you'd have thought he was the commander of the horde."
"Exactly!" Cluny shouted. "I'd had my eye on Cheese Thief for quite a while. He was doing a fair piece of ordering about without my permission. Why, I bet he ordered some of you lads around while I was gone."
"He started shoving me around, Chief,"
volunteered Darklaw indignantly.
"Let's do this. Fetch that. Jump to it. I'm using the Chief's tent. I think Cheese Thief was getting too big for his boots, Chief."
Cluny threw a claw around the speaker's shoulder. "Thank you, Darklaw. You're an intelligent captain. You could see as well as I did that Cheese Thief was planning to take control of my trusted horde. Why else would he start using my tent and dressing up in my battle armor?" The soldiers nodded sagely to each other. Cluny was right. There was no fondness in the ranks for the dead, power-hungry bully. Cluny continued. "You see, I knew the Badger and her friends were planning to kill me, so I thought I'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Fool them, and save myself the trouble of having to execute Cheese Thief. In fact, I let the Redwall crowd do the dirty work for me. I didn't want any of my loyal soldiers put to any trouble. I gave the traitor enough rope and let our enemies hang him. Cluny slapped his thigh and burst out laughing. The horde joined him, falling about with merriment at their chief's black joke. What a cunning idea! There was no doubt about it. The scourge didn't miss a single trick. Cluny waved cheerfully to the distant figure of Constance on the wall. "My thanks to you, Badger!" he shouted. "You did a fine job!" Constance could not hear a thing from the distance of the ramparts, which was just as well in the circumstances. Cluny was almost jovial as he turned to the horde. "Well, my good warriors, has anything else happened while I was away?" Kilconey performed one of his most elaborate salutes. "The tunnel is going very well, Your Honor." "Good, good," said Cluny. "Anything else to report?" Mangefur and Scumnose piped up jointly.
We was out searching for dock leaves, Chief, way out across those fields over there.
Cluny halted them. He nodded to Scumnose. "You, tell me." "Well, we was rooting about by some hedges, Chief," said Scumnose, "and we found a whole tribe of dormice fast asleep, so we pounced on 'em and tied 'em up in a bunch. Nice big fat ones they are, Chief." Cluny interrupted. "Dormice, huh? You haven't killed them yet, I hope." Scumnose shook his head vigorously. "Oh no, Chief. We're keeping 'em nice and fresh in the ditch there. Do you want to see 'em? I think there's about 20 all told." "Good. You did well. I want them kept alive," muttered Cluny as he walked across to the ditch and peered down at the captives. The dormice were huddled miserably together, their necks looped cruelly together on a rope. They whimpered fearfully at the sinister sight of Cluny the Scourge. "Which one of you is the leader?" he snarled. A bedraggled youngish mouse held up a timid paw.
I am, sir. My name is Plumpin. Please let us go free. We have done no harm to any living creature. Violence is against our nature.
"Silence!" Cluny snapped, "or I'll teach you what violence means." An anguished moan arose from the dormice lying in the ditch. Cluny cracked his tail. "Cut out that cringing," he said contemptuously. "You are my prisoners to do with as I like. Oh, don't worry. I won't let them kill you yet. I've got other more useful things in mind. You, Plumpin, or whatever your name is, tell your tribe that they won't be harmed as long as you do what I say. For the present, you are to stay down there under guard. Scumnose, Mangefur!"
Yes, Chief?
"You two are responsible for these prisoners," said Cluny. "See that no creature goes near them. Stand guard night and day. If just one of these dormice is missing, you'll both end up on a roasting spit. Is that clear?" After Cheese Thief's carcass had been disposed of, Cluny sat beneath an awning that had been improvised from the damaged tent. He watched the armorer diligently repairing his prized gear, and fumed inwardly. His equipment had been battered, and he had lost a valuable captain. The Redwall contingent had stolen a march upon him, and the battering ram had failed miserably. Once again, the thinking was left to him. The horde were more concerned with licking wounds and feeding their stomachs. Strategy was not their responsibility. However, on reflection, the balance was beginning to swing in his favor again. He now had 3 possible keys to the Abbey. One was the tunnel. The rats in Mossflower Wood were attending to his second scheme. And the third. Cluny glanced over to the ditch. The capture of the dormice would prove an even more devious avenue to the conquest of Redwall, provided he played his cards right. Early evening saw the attack upon the Abbey get underway once more. Just Squirrel and Ambrose Spike had joined the ranks of archers. They popped up and down, selecting random targets. "I don't like it," Jess remarked. Ambrose grunted as he released a feathered shaft at the ditch. "Don't like what, Jess?" The squirrel put aside her bow and sat down under cover of the parapet. They seem to have slackened off somehow, and we haven't seen much of Cluny lately. It's not like the Horde to behave in this way. Personally, I think there's something afoot that we don't know about. Winifred the Otter was standing nearby. She slung a stone hard, nodded in satisfaction at the resultant scream, and joined the two friends.
Aye, I'm inclined to agree with you, Jess. The Scourge has probably figured some new move. This attack may only be a cover. By the way, is there any word from Formal and his crew?
Oh, they've still got their ears to the ground, Ambrose said gruffly. Formal says they've heard the odd echo. Nothing definite, though. Southwest corner is where he thinks they might surface eventually. Yes, I've heard that too, Jess agreed. We'll have to arrange a warm reception for those filthy vermin when they show up.
What baffles me,
Winifred mused,
is where young Matthias has got to. It's not like him to miss the chance of a battle.
Abbot Mortimer was on his rounds with food. He had been eavesdropping on the conversation and could not help commenting. Do you know, I was just thinking that same thing myself. But we must give Matthias the benefit of the doubt and trust in his judgment. I have a feeling that he could be the salvation of us all. One thing you may rest assured of, wherever that young mouse is, he'll be concerned with the survival of Redwall in one way or another. I'm sure.
Well,
Jess sighed as she picked up her bow and notched an arrow to it.
we better make sure he has a home to come back to. On with the war, friends.
The squirrel drew the bow full stretch and stood up. She paused a moment, peering along the yew shaft, then released the string with a vibrant twang. Below, on the edge of the meadow, a creature fell transfixed. One stoat less to carry out Cluny's commands.